Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you everyone for joining us for our webinar today. You should be able to see my screen. You should be able to hear me. Hopefully you can hear me okay. If someone wants to just put in the chat or something, that, hey, you're seeing my screen and that you can hear me okay, that would be great. Thank you. And we'll kick it off. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everybody. Great. So this is Aaron Sachs, Senior Product and Technical Training Manager for Hanwha TechWin America. And I'm very excited to be doing this webinar here today. Whoops. Sorry, I'm on a single monitor, single screen today, so Zoom acts a little different. Today we're going to be talking about our introduction of and the expansion of our Wisenet X series into some additional Wisenet X Plus and our new Wisenet X Core lineup here today. And it's all focusing around AI. AI is a very hot topic, so let's jump into it. So the agenda today is we're going to talk about how we can use AI to reduce false alarms. We'll talk about some of the key features, other things that we've added into these models. We'll then go into the actual what the models are and their key specs. And then we'll talk about accessories and mounting from there. The webinar is being recorded. It will be available for replay, and this will be available in a PDF format posted to our website at the address listed there. You can also view past webinars and sign up for future ones. All participants have been put into a listen-only mode. So if you have any issues or questions, you can use the chat section, or you can use the chat if there's any issues or whatever. And then you can use the Q&A section for any questions. And I'll probably get to questions more at the end, so you can put them in and queue them up, and we can go from there. If we run out of time for any questions, then we can certainly get to those individually offline, as long as I have your name and email from the Zoom sign-up. So very briefly, just one quick slide on who is Hanwha in case people don't know. So Hanwha is a global Fortune 500 company based in South Korea. We have over 30 years of manufacturing experience in video surveillance specifically. And we have our supply chain of trust. You hear a lot about supply chains nowadays. We hear a lot about cybersecurity nowadays. So this picture on the right is our Vietnam manufacturing facility. And so that's where we make a majority of our products. So they're made in our facility by our people. They're designed by our R&D staff in our South Korea R&D facility. So we design, we manufacture, we do QA and QC and all of that. So all of our IP cameras, analog cameras, NVRs, DVRs, and encoders that we sell and distribute in North America are manufactured, like I said, in our South Korea and Vietnam facility. So we have a full suite of products that are compliant with the NDAA and TAA compliant and on the GSA schedule. So in the past year, we had a couple cameras, a couple models, and some of our NVRs, DVRs that were not NDAA compliant, and they have been changed over for a full lineup. So part of that manufacturing, one of the core components that we manufacture for many of our products is the SoC, or the system on a chip. That's the heart of the product. That's the chipset in the camera. And so we use that in our Wisenet X series. We are on our Wisenet 7. That's our 7th generation chip here. And you can see some of our history going back to 2010 all the way to the present. And we keep on enhancing the performance, resolution, frame rate, feature sets of our chipset. So back in 2020, we released the Wisenet 7, which allowed us to do things like multi-sensor cameras, 4K, extreme wide dynamic range, advanced lens distortion correction, and most importantly, some advanced cybersecurity that we'll talk about. And now here in 2021, going into 2022, we're adding in the AI deep learning functions into the chipset. And one thing that we're doing here is we've had our Wisenet X Plus series. Hopefully everyone's familiar with it. That's the camera on the right. It's a modular form factor where the camera module, the brain, the piece in black, comes out of the case, and it allows for easier installation, easier upgrading of features, easier to kind of pick and choose exactly what goes where and how and when, and easier to stage your products. You'll see more of this detail later on. And so what we're doing is we're introducing the new X Core on the bottom, which is a semi-modular design. Still has a lot of great features for ease of installation, but just be aware there are slight feature set differences between X Core and X Plus. So X Plus has everything the X Core has plus more. And so we're going to go through many of these features coming up. But before we get to that, again, the most important thing, the reason why we're launching a whole new lineup of cameras here is reducing false alarm by using AI. So conventional cameras on the left, when you have things like shadows, foliage blowing in the wind, you have sunlight changes throughout the day, bugs flying around, dogs and cats scurrying around. All of that will generate pixel-based motion detection, and a lot of analytics are based on motion detection. A lot of VMSs record based on motion detection. So it means that you're constantly getting a lot of excess motion, excess analytics, excess activity, and it makes it hard to search through your video based on all of that. So what we're doing here, if you are familiar with our Wisenet P series, which has AI-based object detection and classification, we're doing very similar things here. So on the right, it's identifying, oh, those are people, and it puts, it identifies those objects, and then allows me to say, well, now I crossed a virtual line, or now I'm detecting, movement, or whatever the case might be. So we can detect two main classifications of objects. We can detect vehicles and people. And inside that, a vehicle can be classified as a certain vehicle type. We can identify a car, a bus, a truck, a motorcycle, and a bicycle. We can also identify the presence of a license plate. Now, the presence of a license plate is not detecting LPR. It's not converting it to text. It's detecting that that's a plate, or that there's a plate present on the vehicle. And then for people, we can identify that it's a person, and we can also identify that there's a face component to the person. And we'll talk about what that does for us in a couple minutes. I'm going to play a video here. You're probably not going to get the sound for it. You don't really need the sound. But again, this video will show you how the camera can detect these different objects in the scene. So you can see how on the left, it detected, the trees blowing in the wind, whereas on the right, detecting the objects, even the person on the bicycle, it detected the bicycle as a vehicle, it detected the person and a face. So that's what we're doing there. Then once we've detected these objects, now what can I do with that? The idea is a lot of people have been wanting to use intelligent video analytics. We'll talk about which ones are available in a bit. But here's a quick demonstration video showing how we can do things like virtual line crossing and virtual area much more accurately without those false alarms by detecting it with AI. So they're showing here, we're selecting a person, we're selecting the enter virtual area. So if a vehicle enters in, it ignores it because it says, well, that's not a person. So it allows us to fine tune and get much more granular of what my analytic is going to be doing. And then when the people enter the area, that will then generate the event or the alarm. And here's a second demonstration showing a virtual line crossing. Here we're selecting just vehicles, and we have the ability of selecting which type of vehicle. So here we've selected all vehicle types. So you can see it detected a vehicle, it put a box around it, and then the screen went red to indicate that it detected that. If we then want to change it to a person, and we can specify this per virtual line or area. So we can have 8 zones or 8 lines. And so for each one, we can choose, is it a person? Is it a vehicle? Which type of vehicle? And which one of the analytics? In addition, these cameras have part of their analytics suite are things like people counting, heat mapping, and queue management. In the past, you had to have a camera mounted directly overhead, and they were very limited in what they could do in terms of traditional surveillance use. By using AI, we can now have the cameras at more of an angle that is more beneficial for general surveillance. And it gets rid of, again, the false alarms, the false skewing of your data sets, because it's identifying, hey, that's a person and not a shadow or other things happening. And in terms of, busy scenes, in terms of what the camera can do, the camera can detect and track 256 AI objects at once. So here's an example of a camera, in New York City on a vehicle, and you can see it's detecting all these people and faces and vehicles all the time. So it's very, very powerful. In our VMS, we'll talk about VMSs in a minute, we have the ability, you can see the mouse is clicking through different object types of saying, only show me vehicles, only show me people, only show me this type of vehicle. And then it can filter and select that, whether that's, again, for the live analytics or after the fact. We're streaming metadata back to my VMS that is then searchable and usable for forensic searching. Again, we'll talk more about that shortly. Another really cool piece that I'm really excited about is, when AI first came out, I'm going to call it, first generation. So in the past 2-3 years, great. It added a feature, it added an analytic component, but it was very limited. That's all it did. And what we're doing now is we're going to our next generation of AI. And what I mean by that is the ability for the camera to use the AI information, to use the ability to say, hey, here's a person, and optimize and change the camera's configuration, change how the camera is working to better suit what I'm trying to look at, of saying, hey, here's a person that's moving through the scene. That's what I care about seeing. Let's do something like optimize the noise reduction so I don't get blurred video at nighttime, for example. So we have a feature called Wisenet, Wise Noise Reduction 2, and that can now use the AI function to enhance what it's doing and how it's doing it for the people and vehicles that it sees in the scene. Same thing for shutter control. We have now the ability to call a setting called preferred shutter control that also uses the AI. So that way, when it sees that person, sees that vehicle, it can optimize the shutter speed to make sure, again, that you don't have blurred movement, that you don't have blurred video. Actually, did I skip a video? No. I think I had some videos in here and I think they disappeared. I'm sorry about that. We have 2 videos on our YouTube channel. You can certainly take a look that show examples of the preferred shutter control and the wise noise reduction. I think I did not insert them correctly, so they're missing. And then the third one that I'm really excited about is our Wise Stream. So we've had Widestream now for many years. It is our video compression technology that allows me to lower bandwidth, lower storage needs using a variety of methods. And now we're adding in the AI function of saying, when there's no object, when there's no people or vehicles in the scene, let's keep the bandwidth low. So even if there's trees blowing in the wind, shadows, even if there's other things happening, it's going to keep that bandwidth low. And that's been the one downside to things like Widestream. Is you have a busy scene, you have trees blowing in the wind, it's going to kick your bandwidth up because it sees that internally as pixel-based motion detection. So when it sees an object, then it's going to kick the quality up. It's going to keep the compression low, so you get high quality video for the people and the vehicles, which is usually all you care about. And I can play this clip here again if you're able to see it. And it shows on the left, I have about a 4 megabit stream. On the right, it was less than half a megabit. And when the people enter the scene, it kicks up. But the Widestream 3 is still much lower bandwidth than the Widestream turned off or Widestream previous generations. Again, that video is also on YouTube, so you can see more detail there. We have our extreme WDR, wide dynamic range. So we typically tell people if you have difficult lighting scenes, changing lighting scenarios, loading dock, windows, anything like that, we always go for our X series. So this has our best in class wide dynamic range, just like the previous Wisenet 7 generation had. Another new feature that we're adding in is our Wise IR, and that's an ability for the camera to adjust the power level and or which IRs it's using based on the scene, based on what you see in the scene, based on what's going through the scene. And we also have a very wide angle IR. So if the camera is zoomed all the way out, it can flood the whole area without those hot spots as well. And I think my video also failed to load. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, let me stop sharing for 1 second here. And let me see if I can find that video that I got prepared. There it is. Sorry about that, everyone. Just give me 1 second to figure out where they are. Okay. Let's see, where's my share? Sorry about that. Always a little hiccup here and there. Share screen, and let's see. Okay, so let's see if the video will play this time. There we go. So you can see on the conventional camera, the person on the edges is very, very dim, or someone in the middle might have a hot spot. So that is the Wise IR. Another great feature of these cameras is the lens distortion correction. It is able to keep straight lines looking straight. So ceilings, walls, power lines, anything that you're looking at. A lot of end users have a hard time understanding the distortion that a typical wide angle lens will introduce. And there's a variety of settings we have in our Wisenet X series cameras to help correct that and make it look more natural. Here's a video you'll see You can see this building here, this curved effect on the left, on the right, and then things like the wires, the power, the traffic light pole. So you'll see the LDC lens distortion correction feature being turned on, and we have two different modes. One's called fill and one's called stretch. So when we turn on the first mode, you'll see that building now looks nice and straight like it should, but it does crop some of the scene. If we go and choose the other option, you'll see I don't get that cropping, and I'm able to see the whole scene, and now it looks nice and straight. And this is with LDC turned back off again. So really, really cool feature there. Another great new feature that we're introducing in the 2 megapixel models. Again, we'll talk about model numbers and all that later on. We are now able on the X Plus to output up to 120 frames per second. So if you have cases where you have really fast moving objects and you need to get every last detail, if you're playing with shutter speed and trying to slow down the action for things like license plate capture or looking at conveyor belts, whatever it might be, we have 120 frames per second available on the X Plus, and the X Core has up to 60 frames per second, again, for the 2 megapixel models there. In terms of cybersecurity, so again, this is a chip that we design and manufacture and take care of the software on it and all of that. On our X Core, we have a certification from the UL called the UL CAP, which stands for Cyber Assurance Program. It's a certification program where they look at the development, the manufacturing, the software, the hardware, to make sure that it meets their specifications. We have a variety of things, including a trusted platform module that has a one-time burn function. So this core software cannot be modified, cannot be infiltrated or hacked. There's a secure real-time operating system that handles the back end of the camera that then communicates to the normal Linux camera side operating system. We also have things like secure boot to make sure that when the camera boots up that the firmware is legit and has not been tampered with. We keep our data secure, we keep our storage on the camera secure. So there's a lot of great features involved in keeping you secure. And again, hopefully everyone knows cybersecurity is a really, really important piece today. And that goes from supply chain to development to manufacturing. Now, on our X Plus lineup, that instead has an even higher certification known as FIPS 140-2. FIPS is a US federal standard, federal information processing standard, and it has to do with the cryptographic, the encryption modules in a product to make sure that they are validated and verified all the way through to make sure that the encryption is strong and secure. So a lot of federal agencies, a lot of state and local, and some enterprises want FIPS 140-2 to validate the cyber worthiness of the product. We also are seeing some standards of other countries wanting to latch onto that, of saying, hey, this is a very important standard to look at the cryptographic side, the modules, the encryption of the product, and they're being specified in places like UK and Canada and other places, even though it's a federal, US federal standard that it came from. And so again, we are keeping encryption keys on the product, on the camera when we manufacture them. They're stored in the trusted platform module to secure and lock down the camera. We have plenty of other information about the cybersecurity. I don't want to get too deep into it, but we've also enhanced the reliability and durability of these products. We've adopted a metal shielded RJ45 connector. That way, if you are in a place that is prone to lightning and other transient surges, the shielded connector can connect up to if you're using shielded network cable, and then properly grounding that from there, that can help ensure the product doesn't get damaged by lightning or surges. We also enhanced the dome cover, the bubble of our cameras. They are now using a hard-coated dome material that allows it to better withstand abrasion, scratches, and just the lifespan of the camera. That also helps to ensure that at nighttime you don't get reflection, blowback from the IR LEDs from scratches on the dome cover. We have a really cool video on YouTube about that, showing the longevity and durability of the hard-coated dome. We've also added to our X Core a Gore valve or Gore vent. The X Plus already had it. It is a Gore-Tex branded product. It's a valve that's in the base of the camera, you can see there. And it allows condensation, moisture to be expelled out of the camera. So when you are installing a camera and you put that cover on, if you're in a hot, humid environment or almost any environment, there's gonna be some moisture. That way it doesn't get stuck in the camera. It also helps to lessen any stress on the seals of the camera from temperature changes. It allows an equalization of pressure inside the camera, and that helps to again make sure the camera stays working for longer, and it just helps with the reliability and durability and the proper sealing up of the camera for all weather conditions. We also have dual power inputs. We have PoE and DC 12 volt. That's nothing new. But what we've added now for the X Plus is a power redundancy failover function. It allows you to supply the camera with dual power sources. If one power fails, so if you have a high security place where they don't want any downtime, normally if a power source fails, we could plug in 2 power supplies to our cameras previously, but the camera would often reboot and you'd have a downtime of a minute or so. So here we will have no downtime, no reboot, no loss of your video streaming or recording by using the power redundancy failover function on our X Plus. Now, for the X Core function, this shows here what I referred to as a semi-modular design. Our cameras typically had the camera itself, the base that gets installed in the ceiling. You have a dome cover, and then we would often have a plate to mate up to a gang box. Well, that plate was typically, added a little bit of thickness to the camera, a couple millimeters. Now what we've done is we've recessed it so it sits flush in the camera, so we're not adding another piece to the camera. That plate that you mount that plate to the ceiling, you mount the plate to the wall. It has the gang box hole patterns on it, so you don't need an extra plate. And this allows you to easily install the camera without having to hold the whole camera contraption in your hand while you're trying to go up on the ladder. You can just take the plate, mount the plate, and then the camera slides into there and secures with 2 screws. Then you put your cover on, and then there's a skin cover that slides up to the whole thing when you're done. So it's a nice finished installation. For the X Plus, that's the same fully modular design that we've had now for a couple of years. That's where we have on the left, we have our mounting plate, like I just mentioned, that mounts up to gang boxes. Then we have the bottom case. We have the removable camera module, which snaps in with a magnet mount. That also allows you to easily, if you want to upgrade and change the camera, you can easily upgrade the camera by just pulling out the module and putting in another X Plus modular camera. Then we have the dome cover, and then the outdoor cameras have a weather cap. In addition, for our modular cameras, the X Plus, the boxes they come in are designed for staging. There's a cutout where you can plug in a network cable through the box without having to take out any screws, without having to unpackage anything. to be able to easily stage the cameras, give them an IP address, update firmware, push some settings to it, run reports from our device manager tool, things like that. The X Plus and the X Core all have our Wi-Fi, they all have our USB port. The USB port allows you to plug in compatible Wi-Fi dongles into the camera that lets you go up on the ladder to do things like aim, focus, mirror, flip, adjust our multi-sensor cameras, lots of cool things, take a snapshot. Without having to take a laptop up on the ladder and plug in a network cable. You can do it all right from the USB port and your phone or tablet. In addition, many of those Wi-Fi dongles that we've been using got very hard to find because of changing of models and firmware and component shortages. So these new models support some newer Wi-Fi dongles that are easier to find now on the just third-party products there. You'll see, in addition to the Wi-Fi port, the X Plus does have an analog video out. So if you have an analog handheld monitor that you've been using for years and years, you can still plug that in with an adapter cable that comes with the cameras. The cameras have dual micro SD card slots. They now support 512 gigabyte SD cards, so you can put 1 terabyte of storage directly into the camera. And then there's a little joystick that lets you adjust the zoom and focus right from the camera as well. The cameras also have the audio playback event where you can upload a audio clip into the camera and tell the camera that when a certain action happens, when an analytic happens, when this happens, play back a sound file through a connected speaker. You can record the SD card, you can do alarm outputs, kind of normal things. What we've added now, a new feature, is kind of bringing us into the IoT world of being able to send a HTTP or HTTPS or a TCP message out to some other device. So if you have an access control panel and you want to send a notification to it, we can now do that. If you have a VMS that maybe hasn't integrated one of our analytics, we can now, if you have the HTTP command from that VMS, we can send an event to that VMS. So it allows us to very easily interface third-party products right into our cameras. Alarm input and output, like I just mentioned, we've had that for a long time, but what we've now done is made them switchable. So depending, it used to be we'd have one alarm input, one alarm output. Now you can change them freely from input 1 and 2 to be input or output for either one. So it allows you more flexibility for what you're looking to do. The X Plus can also output up to 50 milliamps DC 12 volts on that output if needed. We also have virtual channels. Virtual channels allow you to make the camera kind of look like almost a multi-sensor on most VMSs. You can create a zoomed in cropped image. We've had this feature before, but it worked differently. It was more a different profile in the camera. Now it's a virtual channel. So it works easier with other VMSs if you want to use that. So you can create up to 3 virtual channels. You can specify the area that channel is going to be in, and then you can specify things like the frame rate and resolution and all of that. Another great feature is the wider tilting angle. On our conventional cameras, we could only tilt up when you're on the ceiling mount. We can only tilt up 67 degrees. And now we've enhanced that to 75 or 85 degrees up. So when you have things like, retail environments, malls, and you have stairwells, or just in an office environment, you have a stairwell, we can now cover more of that stairwell with that one camera. So we don't have that blind spot at the top there. And then finally, VMS integration. So obviously these cameras are fully integrated with our Wisenet Wave VMS. You saw some of the video clips I showed of being able to search person, vehicle, things like that. Now, if you're familiar with our P series AI cameras, there is one main difference. The P AI series allows me to do my forensic search, and I can say, show me people, but you can specify a color of clothing. If it's a vehicle, you can specify a vehicle color. So we don't have that. We don't have the attribute extraction component that you might be familiar with our P series. The only piece we have here is the object type, vehicle and person. And then vehicle, we have vehicle classification of, again, bus, truck, car, bicycle, and motorcycle. And so these have now been integrated into Milestone and Genetec using the plugin that we've created for them as well as we have a lineup of Hanwha NVRs that have AI search function capabilities as well for easy forensic search. And also you can use that for live event notification. Okay. Again, I see some questions came in. I'll hit those questions at the end. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you, but it's just hard to do on my laptop screen right now. Next, I want to move into more detailed specifications and showing you what the models look like and whatnot. So starting with our X Core, starting with the indoor model, so XND, that's our normal indoor model. It's going to be XND-C, that's going to indicate it's the X Core. And then these are all the 83s. So we have a 9083, XND-C, 8083 RV, 7083 RV, and 6083 RV. So these are indoor Vandal Dome cameras. They're IP52 rated and IK8 rated. Typically, our indoor domes previously did not have an IK rating. I'm sorry, an IP rating. So now these are IP52 rated. So you'll see these go from 4K, 6 megapixel, 4 megapixel, 2 megapixel. They're all 16:9 aspect ratio. They have motorized varifocal lens, 2.8 to 12 millimeter for the 2 megapixel. Oops, I have a typo there, sorry. The 4K and 6 megapixel is a 4.4 to 9.3 millimeter lens. And then we are going to have, yeah, sorry, that spec got all messed up there. And one of the models, I guess the 4 megapixel is 2.8 to 10 millimeter. You'll see the wide dynamic range, things like frame rate will change depending on which resolution they are as well. In terms of analytics, all of the X Core, I'm sorry, that's not on the screen here. And yeah, sorry, I think you'll see that on a future slide there. So you can see there, again, the core specs there. Then when we go to the outdoor Vandal domes, that's our XNV, same format, XNV-C, 9083R, 8083R, 7083R, and 6083R. Because outdoor Vandal, they're IP66 or IP67 rated, NEMA 4X, and IK10 rated. Besides that, specs are very similar across the line there. We're also going to have a bullet line of cameras, XNO, and you'll see, again, very similar specs there. And again, sorry that the lens specs got all messed up on this slide here. You can check out the full data sheet on our website for most of these models for the actual lens focal length. As we go to the X Plus, that's where the model will change. It'll be XND-9083 RV, 8093, 8083, or 8063. I'm sorry, 6083. Now you might notice there's an extra model number in there. So these cameras have either a 2.8 to 12 motorized varifocal lens or a 4.4 to 9.3 millimeter lens. We are going to have down the road, not released yet, a long range zoom lens option. And that will be the 8093. And that will be a 10.9 to 29 millimeter lens. You'll see again the 2 megapixel models. So that'll be the 6083, can do 120 frames per second. The other models can do 30 frames per second at the highest resolution. These have longer range IR, 50 meter or 70 meter. And again, you can see the different specs there. These cameras, because these go to a lower temperature range, these are PoE plus powered cameras versus the X Core or PoE powered cameras. And again, moving to the Vandal Dome, that's just again the XNV. The XNV, the outdoor Vandal model, adds the IP6K 9K rating as well as the IK10 plus rating, so even more able to withstand harsh environments. And the Bullet, again, similar thing, XNO, 9083, 8083, and 6083. We also redesigned the Bullet camera, so now it's much easier to install. There's a single screw to adjust, and it allows you free adjustment of all of the axes of rotation. We changed our Bullet now to a white color instead of the dark gray we had been using. We redesigned the back box. We redesigned everything about it. So it's also much shorter camera. The actual main body is much smaller. So it's a really great redesign there. So definitely worth taking a look at their 50-meter IR range for that. We also will have some box camera models. Again, box cameras aren't used that often, but they're often used for special integration purposes where you need to put it in a special housing for extreme environments or things like that. Okay, and then moving on, again, here you can see this is just a recap of all of the models. This actually shows the correct millimeter lenses. Sorry about that. Anything in gray are the models that have not been released yet. So that is the Bullet cameras and the long range zoom models. So everything that's not in gray has been released as of December 1st or December, whatever the price list was announced this month. We have a range of accessories that are available, either they're new accessories or existing. Many of our white mounts have already been released. There'll be in-ceiling housing options for flush mount, wall mount adapters, weather caps, pole mounts, all the normal things you'd see. In addition, we're adding a waterproof back box. So sometimes people need an additional color matched round back box and this new one will be a fully waterproof one. And just very briefly, I know we're running out of time here, showing you kind of some what the installation would look like, some renderings here for the X Core. So you can see the camera on the waterproof back box, ceiling mounting, whether it's a fixed ceiling mount or we have a telescoping ceiling mount using the hanging mount adapter, the cap. And on the right is the in-ceiling flush mount for indoor use. For wall mounting, obviously the camera can go right on the wall. We've got the weather cap you can see there. We have a wall mount option, or we can mix and match lots of pieces with our installation box or base, wall mount brackets, and the hanging mount there. You can see we can have the conduit go, I believe, directly into, actually, let me back it up here. There's a conduit adapter for the X Core. So if you're mating up to conduit, there's an adapter that's coming soon that will allow you to run the conduit. You can see here we're running conduit into the installation base or a bracket. If you're mounting it directly into the camera, you would need that adapter. If you're pole mounting it, we have our pole mount adapter, or our wall mount can also be pole mounted. And then again, you can chain up multiple accessories depending on what you're trying to do. If you need a place to put an injector or put cabling or have service points with our installation box. Corner mount, again, same thing. We can mix and match. The main difference here also is we can now mount the camera directly to that corner mount, or if I go back one slide, mount it directly to a pole mount. Traditionally, we always had to have a cap and a wall mount arm, adding more parts and pieces. So the whole mounting pattern has been updated on these new products to allow more versatility there. We also do have smoke dome options to retail, often like smoke bubbles. So that was X-Core. Oops, sorry, one more. Parapet mount. We have our standard parapet mount or our telescoping parapet mount there. It allows you to be able to easily swivel the camera out over the side of a building and then pivot it back to be able to install it easier and get service without needing to get a huge lift. This shows here the bullet camera and the conduit adapter I was mentioning there to be able to go for the bullet camera, and again pole mount and corner mount there. Typically, typically we would have to use our corner mount. We'd have to use a corner mount and then attach that to a pole mount, and again making things a lot easier to work with. For the X Plus, that was all X-Core. X Plus, again, some new accessories coming out, a lot of existing ones as well. So here, just again, some rendering showing that, how that looks and works. So that's ceiling mounting of the dome or the Vandal dome, wall mounting options. Pole mounting options, again, looks very similar. Corner mount options and the smoke bubbles on the right. Parapet mount, again, same idea there. And then the bullet. You'll see the bullet camera does not need that adapter. The conduit can go directly into the bullet camera there. So like I mentioned, availability for the standard dome and box cameras, they're available now. The bullet camera we're estimating to be released, I believe, January. And the long range models, I'm not sure, that might be January or later from there. We've got a couple minutes, so I'm going to try to show a couple of those videos that I couldn't play earlier, and then I'll get to any questions from there. Let's see where they went. Here they are. Hopefully they will play. So again, if you remember earlier, I was mentioning about my mouse. There we go. The Wise noise reduction. So I'll play this clip. Let's see if it plays. Great. So hopefully you could see it's able to adjust. The first guy was running quickly, daytime, nighttime, vehicle, person. It's able to adjust dynamically to prevent blurring of the image. The next one was the shutter control, preferred shutter control using the AI function. And let's see, was there one other? We played that one. I think that was all of the videos that we were missing. So, so with that, again, thank you all for your time. And now let me take a look at the questions that came in. Right, so someone asked about the difference, again, between the P series and X series in terms of AI. So again, the core difference is the P series allows you to do that forensic search on more of the metadata attributes of being able to search for color of vehicle, color of clothing, age, gender, things like that. Whereas here, we can search by, is it a person or a vehicle? What vehicle type? And that's it. But in terms of the analytics running, in terms of the analytics, detecting what type of object, that's the exact same there. Someone's asking again, does it have a built-in mic? Yeah, so I didn't show all the detailed specs. Any of the indoor domes will have a built-in mic. Someone's asking about what version of Milestone can you use. If you take a look on our website under any of the AI cameras, or we have a brochure. I can email you later on if you like as well. And it lists what version of Milestone it is. I don't want to misquote of what level or what version. I don't remember offhand which one that is. And again, the smoke dome, the idea is it helps to make it that if you look up at the camera, you don't see where the camera's pointed. So typically retail stores, for loss prevention, they don't want you to know, well, the camera's pointed at this shelf, so I'm going to steal from that shelf over there. So retail stores like to put smoke domes on all their cameras, so that way it's harder to see where the camera's pointed. There are other applications, other verticals that would use them as well, but that's the key place it's used. And so we have this way, it's easy to swap the dome, and you're done. So nice and easy there. So again, this is recorded. We'll post it to our website in a day or two. A PDF version of this will be posted. This presentation will be posted as well. Again, thank you all for joining. And I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if anyone has any other questions from there. Feel free to talk to your regional sales manager or your manufacturer rep. They've got cameras, they can do demos. These are great cameras. If you've used our X series, you know their performance. This is just adding on even more to it in terms of, again, the AI adjusting camera settings automatically and being able to fine tune when the analytics happen to reduce false alarms and be able to do some of that forensic searching on the X series. So it's really, really wonderful and great. So again, thank you everyone for your time, and I'll stick around and see if any other questions are coming in. And hopefully we'll see you next month for next month's webinar is on our new intercom network intercom camera.